Hey everybody, welcome to what I am now calling Plant-Based Chat, my new weekly show. After doing 14 hours of interviews, it's actually easier than a lot of other things. Plus it's fun to bring my friends and colleagues out to kind of talk to you, and I learn a lot, you learn a lot. It's kind of an awesome thing all the way around. So today we have Ashley Kitchens. And I can't tell you how many times I've said, "What's your last name?" Because I think Ashley Kitchens is her brand name and not her real name. And another cool thing, hey, Jackie. Jackie says good morning to us. Let me put that up and see there we go. Let's center that in. So Ashley actually lives in Durham, North Carolina, where I do, and we met wasn't it in Florida? Was it in Florida? No, South Carolina. It was South Carolina
Yes.
at a plant-based event, and I was like, "You live in Durham?" And so it was really cool, and we've hung out and gone out to eat at some of our favorite places. One of the things I love about Ashley is that she's really mellow, accessible, talks a lot about meal prep, which we all know I am not the best at. I'm like, let's make a lot of stuff and freeze it. So that's
Yeah.
my superpower. But over the plant-based bundle, I interviewed a couple of different people that were prepping salads, and I really love that. Ashley is like queen of meal prep. She also talks a lot about transitioning, and the best part is she's not a food shamer. And I don't even think I've told you this, Ashley, but it's just every time I look at your Instagram, I just feel like I got a dose of positivity. And instead of, you should be doing this and you're bad,
Yeah.
and and I don't know about everybody else in the world, but the pandemic was a little hard for me. And last year, there was anxiety and depression that comes up, and so I think hearing these kind of positive messages is even more important. So now I'm going to let Ashley introduce herself and tell you about all her stuff that she does.
Well, thank you, Kathy. And I appreciate you saying that because I did want to approach plant-based eating and even eating vegan kind of in just a different way that was much more positive and engaging and encouraging. So I appreciate you highlighting that because that is definitely the goal of what I'm trying to do. But yeah, my name is Ashley. I was born with the last name of Kitchen, so I feel like it was my destiny to be in a kitchen a lot.
I like
and
that.
to Yep. And to be a dietitian. So that is what I do. I primarily do one-on-one nutrition coaching for people looking to transition to plant-based eating or kind of just figure out how to live plant-based, the non-plant-based world, and also have a really good relationship with food and a really good relationship with themselves, which I believe are both very, very important things to just living a really healthful, enjoyable life, especially when it comes to food. So that's just a little bit about me. Yeah, and I'm really excited to be here because I am very passionate about meal planning and meal prepping. And I think, Kathy, I think when you and I first met, I think that's what my talk was on.
Hmm.
And I still remember being at that conference and you being up on the stage and you were describing something local to Durham. And I was like, I leaned over to Nick and I was like, is she from Durham? Because if she is, I was over the moon excited. And so it's been so nice just to be able to hang out locally and go to plant-based restaurants and eat and chat and all that good stuff.
I know, and we're very lucky here in Durham, North Carolina. I think a lot of people who aren't from the area are like, "Oh, you're in the middle of nowhere." But there's something called Bull City Vegan, which obviously everything's kind of been a little bit on hiatus for the pandemic, but they've gone around for years to different restaurants and made plant-based menus and had like a special week where we get to go eat all kinds of places. And now you have to tell us the name of your dog. Max is downstairs, but Max makes appearances on my lives quite often.
Yes, I feel like they can't help themselves. So
They're
her
like,
name's Lena, and any
Lena?
noise, it's Lena. Yep, any
Okay.
noise, there's high alert in the house. So yes.
That's awesome. Because I think it's funny. The more lives I do, the more people know things about Max, because Max is a little neurotic. So they're like, oh, I'm glad Max is downstairs because that's the blender he doesn't like, you know?
Oh yes. Yep.
And there's something magical about that because when I'm doing these lives, I feel like everybody's just across the counter with me with a cup of tea or coffee or
Yes.
whatever they want, and we're just hanging out. So, Ashley, other than the destiny of your name being Kitchens, what kind of brought you or started you going towards either and being a dietitian or having a plant-based diet?
That's actually a really good question because it's like, okay, well, which one came first? And I get a lot of those questions about like, were you plant-based first and then you became a dietitian, or were you a dietitian and then became plant-based? So I grew up with a lot of, so first of all, I grew up on an Angus cattle farm in really the middle of nowhere in Indiana.
Wow.
And I grew up with a lot of GI issues, obviously ate a lot of meat and drank a lot of dairy. And so, but for some reason, I always had this passion like with food. There was always something about it that I was always really drawn to. And so that's sort of what led me to become a dietitian, to pursue a
Mm,
career in nutrition, just because I was like, well, if I'm really passionate about food, let's turn it into a career and see where this goes. But I really didn't know why I became a dietitian, Kathy, until I became plant-based, which was after.
okay.
So I went through school. I was still having all of these GI issues. And to be fully transparent with your audience, I struggled immensely with chronic constipation. So I'm not afraid to talk about it if you're okay with that.
I'm told
Um,
there's really not a lot off limits because here's the thing, and I know you talk about pooping a lot, and I
I
think
do.
poop is really funny. So I'm an 8-year-old boy when it comes to that. But the thing is, like Cheryl, my wife, wasn't vegan until like I think it was 4 years ago, and then she's like, "I'm pooping all the time." I'm like, "Yay!"
It's a game changer.
Well, it's like you can't. Whenever I hear somebody say, "Oh, I can't poop," try a kale salad. Then you'll know
Yes,
why
do
people
it.
go, "Ooh, kale salad."
Yep, yep. That's pretty much why. So I was like struggling with these issues for 20 plus years. I became a dietitian. I was telling all of my clients and my patients to eat a lot of fiber, drink a lot of water, and do all these things that are supposed to like help with constipation. And I was like, well, I'm doing these same things too, and I'm telling other people to do them, but nothing's happening with me. Like I'm still really, really struggling, and I'm still really sick, and I'm still having to go on medication and off medication and go to the doctor and all those things. So I ended up coming across a plant-based documentary called Forks Over Knives. This was back in 2012. And I watched the documentary and my mind was blown because Kathy, in school, I really didn't learn a lot about plant-based eating or veganism or vegetarianism. The main thing I remember is like, okay, vegans need B12, and that was like the only thing. And so as I started eating more plants, like back in 2012, as I just started like kind of adding them to my diet, which was very, very new to me because I wasn't raised that way. I was raised on, the standard American diet where we eat lots of burgers and steaks and all that great stuff back then.
Mm-hmm.
And as I started eating more plants, I noticed that I started feeling better and going to the bathroom more, like the kale salad example.
I had a kale
And
salad last week, and it reminded me why I should have those more.
yes, yeah, exactly.
This
And
is
so
like,
it's like I started feeling better. I started going to the bathroom more. And so I was like, okay, well, this is sort of it for me. It felt like a no brainer because I started feeling better than I had ever felt in my life in ways that I never knew that I could even feel better.
mhm.
And so that's sort of what propelled me down the path. And I have not looked back since just because I felt so good. And so now I didn't know why I became a dietitian, but after becoming plant based, I knew why I became a dietitian. And that was basically to help others do the same thing because I knew if I was struggling with going to the bathroom or having GI issues or even struggling to go plant based in general, which I definitely did, it took me about 3 years to fully go plant based just because it was such a new and different experience for me. That's, yeah, what led me to basically where I am today, which is helping others do the same.
Well, I love how transparent you're being about your journey because I think sometimes there's like a gold star vegan, and that kind of comes from a different community, but basically that's where a piece of meat or cheese has never passed these lips, right? And
Yeah.
if you are one of those people, that's awesome. But the thing is you can't go back and be that person, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
if you grew up just like everybody else, it doesn't mean that you can't do it. And you don't have to to do it in a way that your friend did it, or that you see it in a movie, or anything like that. It can take 3 years. Like, I became vegetarian in 1983. Yes, I'm an
So
oldster.
awesome.
Yeah, you can buy tofu at the store. I mean, things are so cushy now. I feel like I'm 90 when I start talking about that. But like, and health food stores are like underground. So you'd like go to somebody's house and things like that. And Joanne is saying good morning. We love Joanne and Jackie. And anybody else who's there, please feel free to say hi to us, ask questions. I love to know what the weather is like all around the world. So you hang out with that as well. So I like the idea that it takes a while. So I've probably, and I'm horrible with dates. So I think I've been vegan since about 2010, 2011. But I was working on my first cookbook, and my friend's daughter was born and was lactose intolerant. So it was just easy. And, oh, Amber says hello. And so you kind of have to think about what's going on. What's your journey? What's going, like, I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be vegan. It just kind of, I started making adaptations to recipes. It wasn't very hard. Now I'm kind of the option queen, because like most of my recipes can be soy-free, gluten-free, oil-free, salt-free, refined sugar-free options, right? Because that's kind of what I do well, just the same way as that Ashley knows all the dietitian stuff. And here's the thing, is that some dietitians that I've talked to, which are not a lot, often kind of make me feel a little squidgy, because I'll be like, and you get the first thing, and I'm like, how do you get your protein? Are you getting enough protein? And things like that. And it makes me a little bit nuts.
Yep.
And I've had doctors who are like, what do you mean you're going to eat oatmeal every morning? And I'm like, my head just spins, right? And so it's so nice to have these like little kind of pockets of kind friendliness like Ashley.
Yes.
And I think that those don't help us. I think that the people who are kind of like, I don't know that you should be vegan or plant-based. And right now I'm using those terms interchangeably, though vegan traditionally means you came to it by basically ethical issues. Plant-based usually means you're coming to it from health issues. And what I see a lot, because I work with both communities and the SAD community, which is just crazy, because I'm like, in my vegan Facebook group, I did a little poll of, are you aspiring to go vegan? Are you plant-based? Do you identify as a SAD eater? And I had a bunch of people who did. They just come to add some more veggies. And you know what?
Yeah.
They're welcome.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's so important. And I think too, Kathy, when I first went plant-based, and I was a dietitian as well, I was like, everybody needs to do it. Everyone has to go 100% plant-based. It's like you learn this new thing, and so you want to just tell the world about it. But I've found, after doing this for like almost a decade now, that it really is exactly what you're talking about. Like, meeting people where they're at on their journey is so much more helpful, and it also empowers them to like continue on their journey, versus maybe saying like, should you be doing that, or you could be doing this better. I think you're spot on with that.
I love that, because I was actually at a plant-based retreat maybe like a year or two after Cheryl went plant-based. And she went plant-based because of Josh LaJohny, not me. We sat next to him at a Veg Fest dinner, and they clicked, and we got in the car, and because every once in a while she'd be like, I'm going to go vegetarian, or her famous, I was vegetarian all week. Did you have 3 burgers? So I don't think that, yes, you ate more veggies, and I was like, okay, because you can't make someone in your life do something like that. Now,
right.
She doesn't like to cook, so therefore she eats mostly plant-based at the house.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have an issue with that. But we were at another retreat and I said, people are always like, oh, you finally got her to go vegan. And someone was like, yeah, that's great. And I was like, no, that is not great. And let me tell you why. One, it takes the power away from Cheryl,
Yeah.
as well as the credit. And that's not okay.
Yes.
I am privileged to have people say that I've helped them go plant-based or I've made it easier for them to stay plant-based. And that's something I can wholeheartedly accept, and it makes my whole day, really. But it is about an individual, and I think it is easy to get really excited. And luckily, I just get excited about recipes, so people get a little less weird, though they still can get weird, Like I brought a soy curl dish to like a little cocktail snacky thing. And I brought it for me because I hadn't had dinner. And I'm like, I'm eating. I was like, I'm not going to just have tortilla chips and salsa, which was probably what was going to be there. And I was shocked because I said, you guys are welcome to try it, but you don't have to. And they ate half my dinner. And they were like, ooh, this is really good, right? And I've done book signings where I'm with other Southern cookbook authors. And I've got cauliflower queso. And people are like, And so my thing is, try it. If you don't like it, you can spit it out in my hand.
Yep.
I promise you. And the day someone does it, I'll probably stop doing that. But so far, it's not happened over the years because I'm a little germophobic.
Yep.
So that's a big statement for me because the thing is it looks like Velveeta. It pretty much tastes like Velveeta.
Oh.
Right?
And I've tried your cauliflower queso and I've made it too. I've tried it from you making it and me making it, and it is so good. So I don't think anyone will ever spit it out in your hand. So I think you should keep doing that.
Well, I do. I kind of feel like it's a bold statement that I like making.
Yes.
Now, we do have a question from Lisa, who says hi first. So
hi, Lisa.
She has a question about collagen. Can you get it from plants? Do we need it as we age? Seems like the elephant in the room is no one wants to talk about it. So if I'm I have no idea.
Ooh, okay, Lisa, I have a post on this actually on Instagram that I did. It was several months ago now, and I'll reshare it to my Instagram today. So if you want to go look at it, you can. But basically what the consensus was is there's really not a lot of evidence to support the need for collagen supplementation. There's a lot of things we can do from like just our diet in general, like eating really antioxidant rich foods, a lot of plants, drinking a lot of water, wearing sunscreen that are actually likely more beneficial than taking a supplement, which again, the evidence is sort of like all over the place on whether or not it really is important, even as we age.
Okay, awesome. And she said she's going to check that out.
Okay,
and that's a good question because I know I'm always looking for new products and seeing what's out there. And I'm definitely seeing collagen all over the place. I saw it at Expo East several years ago before the pandemic. It was getting ready to be a big thing. And one thing that I have noticed, I think I haven't been going out as much, but like maybe the past 6 months is there are some things that's like plant-based collagen.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And yeah, there's a vegan company, I think even locally, Kathy, I think local to Durham, that they were working on a plant-based collagen supplement or a vegan collagen supplement, which is really exciting. Like I'm always really excited to see like the ways that we can kind of spin things that are available to the vegan and plant-based community. But collagen in general, it's one of those things that companies can make a lot of money off of just because, we can market it in a way where we feel like, oh, I do need this, or we're sucked into like, oh, maybe I should be taking this. But really, at least right now, I'm going to summarize and just say it really isn't necessary, that there are maybe some other things that you could look at with your day-to-day routine and diet that might be more beneficial.
Okay, that's great. I'm going to go to Joanne and then we're going to come back to collagen. There's more things. And so Joanne is saying she's been vegan since 2008, from sad to vegan in 24 hours, dragged her husband along on the journey. He was so easy, but he was also macrobiotic in the 80s. Anybody remember that?
Whoa, yeah.
You could get all of that. So you could get all the Japanese macrobiotic stuff in those underground stores too. And she was living in the Florida Keys, which in
Wow.
the 80s, oh no, in 2008. And that's harder because there's not as many stores and things are a little more isolated, which is pretty awesome. And Sensible
Yes.
Crime says, please hit thumbs up because she is so sweet. And I love her little clown nose. Um, she's
That's
always my
awesome.
cheerleader. Okay,
Aw.
now Jackie, who also is a regular, is telling Lisa, Jackie works at a health food store, I believe in Austin, but definitely in Texas, and she likes the Sun Warrior collagen peptides. I am just mouthing these words because I know nothing about them, so feel free to check in like yay, nay, anything like that. I'm just reading comments, and then she also says she doesn't use it daily. She uses it as a protein drink.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Okay. And then I'm going to go back because Lisa has has a couple more questions. Let's see. When she researched it being vegan collagen, or collagen, I found that we cannot get it from plants. True or false? And maybe that's not a yes or no question. Maybe it, and I'm just going to preface this, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. Because again, I am not a dietitian. I am just playing one on YouTube today. No, um, sometimes when you're eating plants, isn't it? It's sometimes it's about how things process in the body, and not so much of you get this from that. So would this be one of those cases or no?
So collagen is most easily obtained from animals because we're
Okay.
basically eating animal collagen, like collagen from animals. So
So,
that is definitely the easiest source. But I mean, with technology today, like we were talking about with like the vegan collagen company, and then even the one that was just mentioned, Sun Warrior, we're able to do things that sort of mimic what animal collagen is like or what collagen is like in our bodies, which is really, really exciting. And I think with any supplement, and this is the thing that we were talking about, Kathy, with
mhm.
like no shame, no judgment with any supplement. If you're kind of intrigued to try it, like, I mean, there really isn't, unless there is like physical harm, like unless you're like allergic to it or something, there really
Right.
is no harm in giving it a try and just seeing for yourself what results you feel or notice. Because that's the thing too with anything out there, because I have clients come to me who, there's all these different supplements that are marketed to us on
Mhm.
social media and just everywhere. And so if someone brings me something, I'll definitely do the research just to kind of, just double check to see where it's coming from and what it is. But if you feel aligned to try it, like if it's in alignment with you and you're like, I still want to give this a try, even if the evidence is kind of all over the place, then do it. I really recommend
Right.
just making those decisions that you feel like are best for you and giving it a try.
I like that. And I will be the first one to say, like, I don't do extreme experimentations, but like if it's an herb or something like that, I'm like, did I feel better? Did it matter? Was that just $50 that I just spent,
Yeah.
And Jackie's saying she uses, oh, actually, no, she said somewhere else. Where did I miss? No, ah, Lisa was saying she can't eat pea protein. So maybe, so Jackie is using that collagen as a protein drink. And Sydney says she's been vegan since 2017 and will never go back. And we are glad for you. We
Yes,
really
that's awesome,
are.
Sydney.
Um, and Joanne was saying we're 85 and sunny on the Southwest Florida on the
Oh my
Gulf.
gosh, that sounds so
I
nice.
know. She also is in the summer. She ferments tempeh in her garage.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I bet it's so good.
Joanne is awesome. So we're getting and Lisa. Oh, here we go. Lisa thanks you so much for your help, and she says also that she eats whole food, plant based, and Chef AJ says she gets all I need for my food. So I'll just keep on keeping on, which is
Awesome,
awesome.
Lisa. That's so
And
great.
it's also okay to be curious. And one thing, like I know Expo West is happening soon, and I have the FOMO. Do you get the FOMO when you see all the posts for?
Oh yeah, I always want to know like what the new topics are or like the new products that are coming out.
It's
Yes.
really cool. And I went to Expo East. I think it was 2017 because there's one here, and it's smaller than Expo West, but it's amazing. And what's very interesting, so it's usually the natural foods product, which does not mean all plant-based vegan. Some years I think it's more plant-based vegan, just depending on what the trends are doing. But the year
Right.
I went, the trend was all the cool nut and seed butter flavors. So I probably came home with 50 different samples of different things that I see in the store now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool. And so I think also around, and then too, not plant-based collagen was starting to pop up. So I noticed that I had to like look at the ingredients before I would drink a sample shake or anything, because I was like, ooh, that one's got things in it I don't want.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, now we've got a meal prepping question, which is what we're going to. Let's see, here we go. Amber, would you recommend prepping for the week for kids that are plant-based, but they still tend towards carbs instead of plants, age 7 and 8? And I would just mention that, in my opinion, whole food plant-based is kind of a carb-heavy, carb-based thing, just in whole carbs, right?
Yep. And that's the thing that differentiates like the plant-based vegan whole food plant-based diet from like the regular standard American diet is that it tends to be just naturally more carb heavy. And that is completely okay. And especially with kids who are 7 and 8, it can be, I know, a bit more challenging. And what I would recommend, there is a dietitian who specializes in vegan nutrition. I think it's Vegan Kids Nutrition on Instagram. And she
Ooh.
has such great tips when it comes to just prepping for your child. How much, should they be eating? What if they do leave a certain amount on their plate, or maybe they don't eat their vegetables one day? I feel like she does a great job of like putting parents' mind at ease. Like, if they don't eat like a certain color one day, or don't, eat their fruits or their veggies, she's really great about that. But when it comes to prepping, I mean, really whatever works best for you is what I would recommend when it comes to prepping for your kiddos. But kids in general, they tend to like what they like. And so kind of leaning into that as best as possible and throwing some things maybe under the radar in there can be helpful.
So define throwing some things under the radar. I know how I do it and how I got Cheryl to eat things. Because
Yes.
everybody may not know, but I used to do a lot of writing, and I go, my picky eater Cheryl, and people would email me and ask how old my daughter was. And I'm like,
Oh,
50.
yeah. Yeah. So it's that's actually a really good question, because I was just watching Vegan Kids Nutrition, one of her videos, and she was showing how she makes like one of her pasta sauces. Actually, Kathy, which reminds me of your cheese sauce that you make. And it had like tofu in it and a ton of vegetables. And she basically puts it on noodles because her child loves noodles and she loves sauces. But I mean, this sauce that she made was packed full, like I said, with like tofu. So there was a lot of protein and fat in there, and then a lot of vegetables that were all blended together into this like beautiful like little pasta dish that she plated for her child, with some other fun foods on there. And so that's basically what I mean. And I even do this for myself, Kathy, and I know that you do sometimes too. It's just kind of like throwing some things in there that are like blended together that you can't maybe like actually see them or pick them out. But
Pick
they
them
make a really
out.
delicious.
That, to me,
Exactly.
that's what I hear, because like Cheryl will pick things out. And last night I did a gnocchi class, and I've been like pureeing a tomato sauce for her. I made a basic tomato sauce and you got to understand, I mince these onions. So I'm going to get where I just put them in the food processor and puree them and just be done, because I
Yep.
do that and then prep them and then put them in the freezer. You just knock off a corner of that and you're ready to go. But she was like, there's a lot of onions in that. And I'm like, you're welcome for me making fresh gnocchi for you.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, if it's big enough for her to pick out, she'll pick it out, and I like that. There's a sauce I make, a vegan Bolognese, and the Instant Pot version is on plantbasedinstantpot.com. There's a slow cooker version on healthyslowcooking.com, but it's like eggplant and cauliflower and mushrooms and carrots and some other things, and basically you just chop it all up in a food processor so it looks thick like a Bolognese. But
And
if you
it
have
comes
really
together
young
beautifully.
kids, like I can get Cheryl to eat that because it's minced up just enough. But I tell you what, I puree it in a heartbeat too.
Mm-hmm.
No shame.
Yep. Yeah.
Are there well, let me let you just start talking about meal prepping. So, and we can throw in some other questions too. Oh, and Joanne says, I thought Cheryl was your daughter in the early years, like in 2010. Everybody did.
I
Um,
love that, Joanne.
that's funny. So let's hear
Yeah.
all about meal prep so you can make my life easier and happier.
Yes. So I'm a big proponent of meal planning and meal prepping, and part of the reason is when I first went plant-based, especially Kathy, I was really struggling with like what am I going to eat? Because every time I would ask myself, I would go back to what I knew, which was, meat and dairy and all that stuff that I used to eat all the time. And so planning first and foremost, and then even prepping for my week, because most of us lead really, really busy lives. And so having things on hand that are already prepped, things that you can grab and go, sometimes is really nice. Or even having dinner prepped for a couple evenings so that you don't have to come downstairs or come into the house and be like, okay, well, what am I having for dinner? Asking that same question over and over and over again that most of us have done for a really long time.
I I totally agree. And so like even last night, so I still have, I'm doing some gnocchi experiment. So I took some of the dough I didn't do and put in the freezer so I can see if I can work with it. But I had a whole bunch of them and I layered it with a sauce and I tucked it in the freezer. So now all I have to do is put that in, depending on my timing, I could put it in the oven, air fryer, or the microwave if we're just hungry instead of like, oh, should we get Thai food? Should we get, right? Because that, I think also with the pandemic having been so long, I think that that's also causing some food fatigue or food decision fatigue is really what I mean.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's definitely a real thing. I was actually just talking to a client this morning about that because she just kind of felt like she was in a rut when it came to her meals. And so we talked about, okay, when you're maybe not really motivated, remembering that when you do plan, when you have a plan for your week and when you do a little bit of prepping, that makes the world of difference for you. Even when your motivation is just it's kind of low. And then also too, when you kind of feel like you're in a rut. So Kathy, I feel like I've been in like a smoothie rut lately. And so Nick, he found this list of 20 different smoothies. And so we're working our way one by one through these smoothies just to kind of reignite our love for smoothies because we love drinking them. It's just like we were kind of making the same one over and over and over again. And so we were getting bored. And so kind of using that as a go-to planning for the week. So knowing which smoothie we're going to make and having those ingredients on hand has been really, really helpful just to kind of have something new and exciting for our smoothie recipe.
I love that. And Apple says, hello, better late than ever. We are always happy to see you, Apple. You always make our lives exciting. So, one thing that I've been hearing about that I have not done myself yet is kind of prepping smoothies so that maybe you would prep a few different things.
Yeah. Yep. You can
Um,
definitely do that.
so I've thought about that, and then there's this is slightly off topic, but but not really. So Lisa is talking about she makes a smoothie bowl that she eats it rather than drink it, and I think it's Dr. Greger who was talking about eating your smoothie can help your digestion a little bit more. And as always, anything you ever hear on from out of my mouth or anything that involves me, make sure that you're picking what fits with your personal diet choices, right? So I'm good with that. Now, one thing, because I love appliances, so I have a new appliance that I'm doing some stuff with. Yeah, it's a
Ooh.
Ninja Creamy. And so
Oh.
basically, it's like you make ice cream. So I'm doing some experiments. So I'm working on an oat date sweetened ice cream. And it's this is like what the little pints go in. And then there's this shavy guy. And so
Ooh.
you make the stuff, you freeze the pints, and then basically you just pull it out when you're ready, and it makes it super super creamy. They have
Yes.
smoothie bowl recipes as well, so you could theoretically, perhaps I will prep a whole week's worth of smoothie bowls, and then all I have to do is pick it up and put it in there. It takes 2 minutes
Yeah.
tops, and then you can just eat it right out of the bowl. Because I kind of feel, I don't know about the rest of you smoothie bowl people, but I'm not decorating my smoothie bowl that much if I'm really eating it. If I'm taking a picture for you, oh yeah, it's going to be to the nines. But Yeah, I'm not putting slices of like $8 dragon fruit on top of mine every morning. So if you're like, well, I don't think I can live up to that standard, welcome to my world.
No.
So
throw it together and enjoy it.
And Lisa says she can't eat oats, but she can eat buckwheat. Is that comparable to use to oatmeal? You know, I've never cooked buckwheat so it would be like kasha, which is totally doable. It's not going to get as glutinous, which is always weird to me. It makes me feel like I shouldn't say that word because they don't have gluten, just like glutinous rice still has no gluten. It just means I don't want to use the word slimy, but that's what I really mean. So let's just be honest here. We're talking about poop today. Why not talk about slimy and grains, right? But you can use the slimy for the power of good. You guys hear me say it all the time. Use your neurosis for the power of good. And that's kind of what oats are doing. But yeah, I've done, you can't eat any kinds of oats. So you could also do wheat berries. You could do kasha or buckwheat. Millet is awesome. Like, I love millet. Do you have some suggestions, Ashley, for her?
Yeah, one of the main things for people who don't eat oats is even like a quinoa porridge. So you can, again, it's kind of like what you're talking about, Kathy. It doesn't quite have that like slimy texture, but you can sweeten it up and really just make it just like oatmeal. I love quinoa porridge. There are a lot of great things that you can do with it, but also it's the same with like wheat berries and buckwheat. There's a lot of great things, even possibly grits. I don't know if I've ever had sweetened grits, but maybe you can make them sweet.
Some people do make sweetened grits. I have feelings about that, but I would support you in doing it. I just will never do it.
Sure.
And then let's see, Apple's saying prepping components of meals is so helpful. My fridge looks like a salad bar. Apple, that's why you need to live near me so I can shop in your fridge for lunch.
That sounds amazing.
And Joanne's saying, I love that you use oats so I can afford to be vegan and purchase vegan Parmesan. She's been talking, we all love the VioLife Parmesan. So if you're able to add a little oil here and there, I feel like that's one of the best usage of like having a little extra, like you're putting like if you're being crazy, a whole tablespoon on your spaghetti, and it just makes it seem like so fancy and treaty. But then I also, and you guys, for those of you who can't have any oats, do you remember the little craft thing of like the dry Parmesan? This is oats. And it's a dry oat Parmesan. And I'm going to smell it because I have to. And so all you do, I have a video on YouTube and it's on healthyslowcooking.com. So basically you toast some rolled oats and that makes them taste nutty. Ooh. So this is a no nut Parmesan. You can get a bazillion vegan ones. And you could also do something like this with hemp seeds. So there's no limit. Oats are cheap. And then it's got Parmesan, and you could use salt or salt substitute. And if you can't have any salt, my plain salt substitute that I recommend is take 1 tablespoon of powdered garlic, 1 tablespoon of onion powder, 1 teaspoon of ground celery seed. If you have a spice grinder, grind it just to make it all consistent. If you don't, just mix that up. Use it anywhere that you don't want to have like the Cajun flair or the herby flair, right? So it gives you that base because it hits some of the spots in your mouth that salt would, and celery seed actually has some sodium in it. So that's I can't help it. I'm like a little crazy with the dry oat mixes lately. I don't know if you've noticed that, but yeah.
There's so much that you can do with oats, which is so nice. I actually didn't even know that you could make like a nut-free Parmesan out of that. I mean, that's brilliant.
That's the part of my job I like a lot. I actually have an oat-based cheese mix. So I did 2 dry mix classes, but one of them I have 2 gravies, a golden gravy, so like cafeteria chicken gravy, kind of, a white pepper gravy that you could use like on a cauliflower steak, that you cook the cauliflower steak a little bit, then take some crunchy chickpeas, crunch those up with some herbs. And if you need to, you could put a little aquafaba on there, then do that, and then stick it in the toaster oven, and then pour that white pepper gravy over it. No oil, no salt, no sugar.
Sounds
So
amazing. Kathy, the things you come up with just always blow my mind.
I'm a crazy person. That's I know. I get excited, and I love thinking about food and thinking about how I can make one thing where it works for more kinds of people, but everyone will enjoy it. And I think
Yeah.
if you have a nut allergy and you're vegan, then it becomes a little harder because that's just so
Yes.
traditional. Okay, here we
Right.
go.
Yeah.
And Lisa was saying, slimy, laugh out loud. Sensible is saying, a dietitian named Abby Sharp says eating a smoothie is more filling and satisfying than drinking it. And I believe Dr. Greger was talking about that study as well. I'm behind, so we could have already.
Yep.
Oh, and Lisa can't do millet either.
Oh, shoot, Lisa.
Joanne, oats allow my car to eat too. She's like all about the oats are cheap. Oh no, and Lisa can't do quinoa either. Buckwheat. Buckwheat's great. Another thing, can you eat rice? And I know some people are limiting the rice and trying to eat a lot of different grains because of some of the things that are happening when things are growing, right? I think that's the arsenic thing has to do with what's in the actual soil. But when I first became vegetarian, my favorite thing was this Rice and Shine cereal. It was like from Arrowhead Mills, and basically it's rice grits. So it had the texture of grits that I loved, but it was brown rice. And also you can make congee, which sounds like a weird fancy word, but basically it's overcooked rice with extra liquid.
Yeah, yes.
And you can, put bouillon in there, and I've got some super cheap homemade bouillon on Plant-Based Instant Pot and Healthy Slow Cooking. You just need an onion, some carrots, some celery, a little bit of thyme if you want. Cook it, puree it all down, and add some nutritional yeast if you use that. Can't use nutritional yeast, you could up the umami with a little bit of tomato and mushroom powder. Okay, let's see what else we got. I'm like,
so good.
There's going to be a new question, but I try to get everybody's allergies.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And so Lisa does use nutritional yeast for her Parmesan and adds walnuts. Nuts are delicious in it. So
yeah, they really are.
Don't hear that I'm saying don't do nuts, but if you're limited in how many nuts you can have a day, and I was just at a conference and pistachios were sponsoring it. So I feel like I've eaten my year's worth of nuts because, we didn't have anything. There's some pistachios. Let's have some more pistachios. I think I'm gonna. And Lisa said, oh, here we go. I love the spice class you put in the bundle. Oh, thank you. I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. And Apple says, oh no, the Ninja Creamy is on sale at a local store. Do I need another gadget appliance? Well, my plan for the summer is to be making a lot of recipes for the Ninja Creamy. I have the regular ice cream maker because, okay, since we're talking about poop and slimy, let's just talk about slip ups. So I didn't do a vegan slip up, but I did a whole food plant-based slip up, and I ate a lot of vegan ice cream the past couple of years, like way too much. And it was stress and depression, anxiety. It was the pandemic. I'm not trying to excuse it. It went in my mouth with my hands either. But so I want to kind of keep that little treaty thing. Also, a pint of vegan ice cream is almost $8 now. Did you guys it's very expensive, which does not make you feel like coming home and just having a teaspoon of it.
True.
And I have a Cuisinart ice cream maker that has the compressor so I can make it. I have the other one that you put in the freezer. And so what I'm going to do, I can tell you that right now, I'm going to do it is I'm going to be working on some whole food plant-based recipes. And I have a couple, you can make nice cream in here too. So I've actually just mashed a banana with a masher. And actually here, I'll show you what the containers look like. And this too will make more sense when we were talking about smoothie bowls and things. These aren't super cheap and you have to get the specific ones because it has these things here. And it tells you where you have to stop here, right? So it's a great thing for a smoothie bowl. right? And these actually, if you have a pull out thing in your fridge's freezer, get that one out. You could do a whole week of them. You can get coupons, Bed Bath & Beyond 20% off. These end up being about $10 each, I think. So they're not super cheap. So I want to be transparent with all this. Can you use your food processor and some frozen bananas? Absolutely. But I wouldn't be the appliance whisperer if I wasn't trying this, but that doesn't mean you have to. But I put a little bit of vanilla, some ripe bananas, mashed it in there. And then if you need to fill to the line, you could add a little bit of non-dairy milk or not. And then what happens, and I have a picture, it looks like soft serve, like firm soft serve. It's the Ninja Creamy, not Foodie, Creamy, is about $200. So it's not, there's another appliance that I'm doing some things with for the company that's $1,000 appliance.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think this one's definitely, affordable. What may happen is look up when you're at Amazon, and I don't know that you see this when you're on your phone, or maybe on your computer, and there's a little drop down that goes to books and things like that. There's Amazon Warehouse. Those are returns. And actually, I looked last night and they had an Instant Pot Duo for $53.
Wow.
You can get a lot of great deals. I buy a lot of my air fryers and other things through that because I cycle through a lot of appliances because they keep upgrading. So since this came out pretty much Black Friday this past year, I suspect we'll see some more of those churning through in the next year. And I'll put something up like that. But that's why I was thinking, so to me, this would be a real easy smoothie bowl because then basically I would take whatever smoothie ingredients, puree it in a big blender, and then just pour it in these and not have to think about it. Whereas when I know I could do the same thing in an ice cube tray, right? Too. But I rarely do it, and I'm not sure why. It could just be a personal defect that you guys don't have. Okay, let's see if I can catch up on some of these. Oh, you guys are so sweet. Okay. Apples. Okay, we got that one. Joanne says, I'm the queen of oats. It's amazing what she makes with oats. It's a gift. Some say it's a gift. Some say it's an obsession. But yeah, I've even made an oat liqueur.
What?
Yeah, there's a Scottish drink that has oats in it. So I found, because Outrageous Oatmeals was the oatmeal book I did a number of years ago. And now all these other recipes, most of them are new because now I have a different take. But I do steel cut oats make a great risotto.
Yes.
And oats are really good for you. That's my understanding. And Ashley, if you would like to tell me something dietitian about that, I'm happy to hear it too.
I am very, very team oats unless you can't tolerate them or you're allergic to them. So I think they're wonderful.
Well, I just like how affordable they are too, because I think people go plant-based and they're like, okay, now I need quinoa. And depending on where you're getting quinoa, it could be very expensive or not.
Yes.
Yep. And like same with nutritional yeast, I've been seeing it pop up in stores. A little canister or shaker is a better word for it.
Yes.
Like $8. I'm like, I pay $11 or $12 for my pound of nutritional yeast.
Yes. Yeah. It's like a little spice jar compared to, because I also get mine in bulk and it's like this big old bag and it's like very comparable in price.
Right. And that's the thing too. I'm always telling people too to go to the Indian market for spices.
Yes.
And to never go to the grocery store for spices. And I thought I had backup cardamom. So I have this big drawer over here that's full of spices. Then I have 2 containers full of spices. And I thought I had backup cardamom or something. And I didn't. And I'm like, Cheryl had to go to the store. And it was like this little jar for like $10. And it just hurt me because $10 I can get half a pound at the Indian market. And plus, I think it's good for us to go and especially during these times where we haven't been traveling as much, to go to these like awesome markets. Like Campari Foods and go to Li Ming's, and these are Durham
Yeah.
centric places, but you have something like that. We even have an H Mart in Cary now. And
Yep.
I could just like go up and down the aisles and look forever. It's awesome.
Yeah. And
Um,
that's a good recommendation too, is if you haven't been to a grocery store like that, is just to like give yourself some extra time to peruse the aisles and see what they have, see if you can save some money, maybe buying this one product versus buying it at the regular grocery store you go
mhm.
to. Yeah, those grocery stores are phenomenal.
Well, and I love it too because there's lots of dried chilies at Campari Foods, and so I'll see one I don't know what it is, and so I'm like this. I'm like, is this one spicy like this or mild like this one? And they're just like, why are you talking to me? No,
Yeah.
they're always very sweet, but they're like, okay. And if I hang out in the Indian market and like I'm looking for something maybe that I've not seen before, just so I can research it, some nice lady will come up and give me a recipe. So it's like
Oh.
magic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's good for all of us too, because then I know it's a very starter way to get exposed to other people's cultures, but food's a great way to start.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really is.
And yeah, the lady at the Indian market is the one who shamed me into making my own dosa batter. I'd been going there for a while and they had a really nice whole grain dosa batter with like quinoa and brown rice and I was like, okay. And I set it up there and she's like, she really gave me like, you can make that
Oh.
yourself. And I'm like, I slunk back and put it back. And then the next time I was
Yeah.
like, I made dosa batter because it's stupid simple.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
you put some grains in some water, you soak them, you blend it up in your Vitamix, or if you soak them long enough, you don't even need a powerful blender like that. Ferment it in your instant pot or in your oven with the light bulb on. I mean, people made all this for centuries before instant pots and blenders.
It's true. Yep. Yeah.
And it's delicious. It's a great gluten-free flatbread too. I don't know if you ever make it.
I have never made it. I've only purchased it. So
Ah, well, maybe I'm the little old lady that's going to shame you into making your own
I
toast
think I need to
batter.
try it now.
I have a recipe on plantbasedinstantpot.com. So it uses brown rice, millet, quinoa. I think that's
Oh,
it. There may be another one, and water.
yeah.
Like, and it makes a lot, but one of the things you can do in the vein of meal prep, my version of meal prep, is you can make a bunch of utapams. So dosa is a crepe that usually has a potato filling. Utapam, and I didn't make dosas at home till a few years ago. Like utapams are the lazy people thing to make, and you just put it out like pancake batter, and you put shredded vegetables on top. So I like shredded carrots. You could put shredded cabbage. You could put chopped up jalapenos or green chilies. Anything that you want, you can put in there. You can even put some vegan cheese. So like a cheese utapam is a thing, and you can go ahead and make those and freeze them. And they used to, for a hot minute, had them at Trader Joe's frozen. And I
Ooh,
kind of have a rule of thumb. If you find it in the Trader Joe's freezer section, you can make it and freeze it yourself.
it's probably true.
I don't always do it, but a lot of times I'll look
Yeah,
there for my inspiration about what to do because
that's a good idea.
yeah, and the thing is like people either in different parts of your life you have more money than time or time than money.
Yep.
And there's no shame from me, especially no shame going to Trader Joe's and getting a week's worth of stuff. If that's what you need to do, I'm
Yeah.
on board. There's no shame in buying a butternut squash cut up in a bag, buying it whole, or buying it frozen.
Yep.
I just want you to eat some butternut squash.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Just meeting yourself where you're at, where whatever time of life that you're in right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Marilyn
Yeah.
saying she loves congee. It's so comforting when you're sick. I love mushroom congee. And it's weird to Americans or people who grow up in like a standard American diet because the texture is not something we typically do. But like the first one I had was a Vietnamese one. And so you put in the hot jalapenos, you put in the basil, you put in some cilantro, and then you think nothing's going to happen, but then it just blooms and it's magic. Um,
Kathy, you mentioned jalapenos. You were the first person this was many years ago when we first met, to introduce me to jalapeno powder. I had never purchased it, never bought it, like nothing. So, and ever since then, I love it.
It's awesome because I love other dried chilies too, but the jalapeno gives you this kind of green brightness that's hard to find in like a spice or an herb that you can dry.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Ashley, Amber wants to know. Okay, Amber wants to know. It didn't want to come up. What's your favorite smoothie? And she wants to thank you for letting her know about Vegan Kids Nutrition, that she's checking it out. And I
Oh,
appreciate that
good.
too.
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever anyone asks me, I'm not an expert in vegan kids nutrition. And so I always send them to Carla, who is definitely an expert. So hopefully you'll get a lot of information from her. Oh my goodness. So because we're going through this list of 20 different smoothies, and I like that a couple people I think brought this up, that like masticating or like eating with a smoothie or having a smoothie bowl is a lot more, it's more helpful just for your digestive system. And it's also helpful to like keep you satisfied longer. So I think that was such a great point that was brought up. But I tend to lean towards the um, more of like kind of the funky type smoothies. So right now we've been talking about oats. I've been making this peach oat smoothie, and Kathy, if there's any way I can like get it to you, I will. And it has like some like acidity in it, and I don't know, it's just kind of something I wouldn't make because like my go-to is usually like spinach, banana, and berries. And so it's been nice to like force myself outside my comfort zone and make some things that are a little bit different. So I have a bunch of frozen peaches on hand in my freezer, and I have a huge bag of oats that I got in bulk. And so that's like,
This is the oats. I buy oats like this, so I get them at
that
Am.
is,
Is it the same
yep,
one?
it is the same one.
Yeah.
Yep.
These are really
Because you can,
very affordable and they're gluten free.
yes. And I think it's like 4 or 5 pounds or something. I mean, they last for forever.
They would if I didn't make the cheese sauce mix like 7 times last
That's true.
week. And when we meet up, I would love to give you some oat cheese sauce mix because
Oh,
I
I would
have
love
a
some.
lot of it.
Yeah.
I love the idea of the peach and smoothies. And what I was thinking is with herbs and stuff getting ready to come up because everything's blooming now where we live.
Yes.
Perhaps for the rest, I heard it's supposed to be a hard freeze. We'll see what happens. But some fresh mint or fresh basil would be killer in that smoothie.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes. Oh my goodness, Kathy, you reminded me of another one that I really like that's sort of unconventional, that has romaine lettuce, it has parsley, it has it's parsley and cilantro and like turmeric root, but it has some fruit in it too. I think it has mango in it, and it's something that when someone sent it to me, I was like, I am not gonna like this. It's basically gonna taste like me chewing herbs. But when I made it and blended it, it was so good. It was delicious.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I like trying things. I love herbs with fruit too. And
Yes.
it's at first it sounds a little weird. And if you're a cilantro hater, I could see leaving out the cilantro. I am not. I love cilantro. Like, so when I go
Yeah.
someplace to get a bowl, I'm like, extra cilantro. No, no, no. I mean, extra cilantro. I
Yep.
could just eat handfuls of it. Um, and it, and herbs too have a lot of nutrition that people don't always
Oh,
think about.
yes. They're loaded. That's one of the
Okay.
reasons I love that smoothie, is because it's like a nice way. We talked about like kind of putting things in under the radar. It's a nice way to pack in a bunch of herbs, especially maybe if your go-to isn't to like garnish a lot of your foods with herbs or cook with a lot of herbs.
And oh, I'm gonna forget this. There's the smoothie gal. Is it the smoothie gal? The smoothie. Anyhow, she has a book, and I can't believe I just forgot. But she even puts things like frozen cauliflower in smoothies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, it's very interesting. So some of hers have like broccoli or frozen cauliflower, because I try to always keep cans of beans in the pantry and frozen vegetables
Yep.
because, you need to have some easy go tos.
Yes. Yeah. That's actually a really important piece to even meal planning and meal prepping is having just some go-to items on hand that you can throw together in your sleep or just really, really quickly that you don't have to spend a whole lot of time preparing, especially if you have like a really long day or you're short on time. It's always nice to have like those frozen foods on hand, or like a pantry stocked full of beans or things that you can just toss together real quickly.
I love that. And so one of the people going back, and this would work with smoothies too, in the plant-based bundle that was just sold that you can't get anymore, there was an ebook called Scoop that was all like nice creams and smoothies and stuff. And people who did get the
Ooh.
bundle should definitely check it out. Um, and let's see. And someone was asking about where they can join my group. It's Vegan Recipes Cooking with Kathy Hester on Facebook. Ashley, you have a group as well, don't you?
I do. It's called Plant Centered Nutrition.
Just like what it says under her name. And so you can also find her at plantcenterednutrition.us.
Yep.
All right. Oh, Lisa's like, am I doing a vegan ice cream class? Yes. I'm actually getting ready to start I need more tea. I'm starting to plan Q2 and Q3 cooking classes because with Kathy's Cooking Club, I do 2 live cooking classes a month.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. So we made sweet potato gnocchi, and 2 sauces. And then we decided during class so now it's gnocchi class 1 because we need a gnocchi class 2.
Of course. Yes. There's always another level to go.
There's always something else.
Yep.
Oh, and Lisa has another question. Do spices need to be organic?
Ooh, that's a great question. Whenever anyone asks about organic, Kathy, whether it's like fruits and vegetables, spices, one of the most important things is like whatever fits into your budget. So if you're able to buy organic, then great. But if it's just not in the budget, or maybe it stretches you a little bit too far, then I would just stick with conventional. Or even like look at a list like the Dirty Dozen and go off of that if that's helpful for you. If you're wanting to maybe eat partially organic and maybe not fully organic.
I like that too. And some spices are marked non-GMO, so you can pick those different levels. If you're in a space where you can have some pots, you can grow herbs like parsley, basil, things like that. You can probably, if you don't have a green thumb, you can go to the farmer's market and probably find an organic basil plant or something like that. And then you can dry it in your oven, or if you have an air fryer. And that's what I do with Mia's basil. So I can't remember, Ashley, do you know Howard Jacobson? Because he lives in Pittsburgh. Okay. He's another plant-based person. He co-wrote Proteinaholic and some other things. I'll introduce you. You'll like him.
And he's in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
I know. We're like plant-centric.
Yeah.
Here, yeah, around in here. But they have kind of like a mini urban farm. And so his wife, Mia, brings me giant things of basil and holy basil and different things. And so I dry a lot of that and use it all year. Nice. Another thing to kind of be aware of, I'm seeing this in more and more Indian markets, including smaller ones, is that there is an organic spice section. So if you're kind of on the edge that maybe you could afford a little bit more in your spice budget, start there, because that's still going to be significantly cheaper than conventional spices that you get at the grocery store. So I like that a lot. Okay, and I believe, is it Marzi? And if it's not, I apologize. I recognize your deer, though. I think you've told me how to. So my lactic acid came in the mail, but I've forgotten what I was going to make with it. So Ashley, have you used any vegan lactic acid before?
Okay. I feel like I have for cheeses way back when, but I don't know.
So, here we go. There we go.
Okay. What do you use it for?
Okay, and first, it's made from non-GMO beets. It's vegan. It's gluten-free. It's Druid's Grove. You can get it on Amazon. Because those are all the questions I know we're going to come up on talking. It doesn't taste like cheese. So nutritional yeast, when you add it, it gives a cheesy flavor. This gives a bite, kind of like a sharp cheddar. So I have it in my oat cheese sauce. Since I've been doing it, I put it in any cheese sauces. I have an oat queso that you make in the blender with just basic ingredients and jalapeno powder, lactic acid, a little bit of organic cornstarch, and you just blend until it gets hot and it thickens up and everything. If you don't have a powerful blender, you can blend it, just put it on the stove and whisk it, and it'll get a little lumpy, and put it back in the blender. But I use it to give it makes things taste a little more authentically like cheese. So anything that's cheesy, you could add that to. You can taste it right out of the thing. It just gives almost like a citric acid bite. So you could use citric acid instead. You could use like a vinegar powder or apple cider vinegar in a sauce, depending on what the storage method is. And yeah, you could use some lemon juice. You could use some lemon peel. But once I found out about it, I have 2 sliceable vegan cheeses in 2 of my cookbooks. One uses chickpeas, one uses oats. And there's a cashew one out there. So it does use some carrageenan to make it sliceable. People have played with some other things with that. So that cheese, that's why you wanted it. And Lisa loves grocery shopping. Me too. It would be fun if we could have let's all go grocery shopping. Ashley, maybe we need to do something like we'll go to an ethnic market soon.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
We could broadcast it to everybody. And Marilyn, of course, Marilyn makes dosas. So those of you who don't know Marilyn yet, Marilyn is the dehydrator queen. I bow down to her grand knowledge, and she's going to help me when we do the dehydrator class later. But she dehydrates everything. She's amazing. Makes tofu, dehydrates her akara. She's a genius.
That's amazing. I think tofu jerky in the dehydrator is probably one of my favorite things. It is so good. So,
Ooh, I like that. I was thinking of maybe trying to make some mushroom jerky.
Ooh, yum.
And Lisa said she just got some dried mushrooms to make my beefy bouillon. So again, that was something that's on the class. I believe also a lot of the dry recipes now are on healthy slow cooking. The beef bouillon is, and it's a little more complex. It's got, I think it has some, I'm just guessing. You should go look at the recipe, but I'm pretty sure it has some tomato powder in there and a little ancho chili powder. Kind of get that dark, beefy goodness.
Yum.
Okay, and Lisa's saying maybe she can try congee. I want to know, and I have 2 recipes. I think on Plant-Based Instant Pot, I actually have a slow cooker recipe, because you could use your slow cooker setting, but just use your slow cooker. You can also just, the thing about congee too is you can just cook it all day because it's not like you're overcooking it. Oh, that's sweet. Kathy says, listening to me, Kathy, has introduced her to so many new things. I'm always on the lookout for something.
Kathy, I agree. Every time I talk to Kathy, I feel like I learned something new that I need to go get.
Well, and I try to give other alternatives too, but I get excited when something's kind of I didn't know vegan lactic acid existed until Julie Hassan told me of Julie's Kitchenette. And so it's kind of this thing that gets passed down and we all learn to do better.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Lisa says she loves beets, strawberries, and chocolate in her smoothie.
Oh, yes. Beets, and it makes it such a beautiful, vibrant pinkish red. And I remember taking beet smoothies to work with me sometimes when I used to go into work, and everyone would be like, what are you drinking? Because those beets just make it so beautiful. That's such a good idea.
I love that idea. I'm in awe, and I'm a beet lover anyhow. So I end up getting golden beets for Cheryl because she doesn't notice them as much. So she's team beets taste like dirt.
Yeah.
And I do agree they taste earthy, but you know what? I'm not a green pea lover. To me, that's closer to dirt to me, and she loves those because they're sweet. Oh, and Linda Fowler is saying to also get some smoothie ideas from Robin Openshaw, the Green Smoothie Girl.
Yes. Yep.
And let's see. Oh, and Joanne's talking about the group. And our group is really sweet. So I firmly believe when you tell people that we're all here to be helpful and nice, because it's an unusual situation. We have vegans, plant-based, and transitioning, or people who just want more vegetables in there. And
Yeah.
so it's like we talked about at the very beginning, you know, and I always want to find a better way to say this, but it's like you catch more flies with vegan honey. Well, really, we catch more flies with apple cider vinegar, but that's a whole other,
That's
right?
great.
Do you ever? Sometimes I'm team fruit fly and have little cups of apple cider vinegar everywhere.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Um, okay. Frontier spices are great for organic spices. Yes, they are. And I'm like, that's where I get my nutritional yeast. So I'm actually getting some samples from some other people. Actually, I get asked a lot about what my favorite nutritional yeast is. And my answer is I've never had one that I don't like yet. So maybe you have a favorite.
Let me go grab it.
Okay, awesome. And I'll just go through some more. And oh, that's a great point, Joanne. Trader Joe's has great herb plants. That's true. And I get those as well. Some of those herb plants, they're usually around $1.99. They could go up this year. I buy one once a month. I kill them regularly. You made me feel better. Okay, let's see the nutritional yeast.
So this is the nutritional yeast that I use.
Okay, I use some other Anthony's products.
Okay, yeah. I just buy it on bulk on Amazon, and I actually have just a subscription going because I go through this very frequently. So
That's awesome. I'll have to try that. I believe that Dylan from Well Your World is sending me some, and
oh.
the whole Nutrilicious offered to send me some. I don't know.
Ooh.
Nutrilicious appears to cost more, so I'm interested if it tastes better and things like that. But we'll do a Nooch comparison, and maybe if I don't have any of that, maybe I can grab a teaspoon or a tablespoon from
Oh
you
my
just
gosh.
to do something
Yes,
like that.
absolutely.
And I think I started getting Frontier just because it was inexpensive, and it's what I used to buy in bulk anyhow. But I've used Red Star, I've used a bunch, and I don't know, either I'm just okay with them. Some people have some they hate.
Yeah, I've definitely tried some before where I bought one time where it was like a really fine nutritional yeast. It was very powdery. And I'm used to like kind of more like the bigger flakes with this. And so that was different for me.
And is that one flaky?
It's much more flaky.
Okay, because if you're on Amazon, you can look because they will have like large flakes, small flakes, and some other things. And honestly, I just get whatever's cheapest. I just seem to not have much preference with that, where I'm so picky about other things. And Lisa's saying, this lactic acid is made from beets, non-GMO beets. So that could be different in a different brand, but this one's vegan and gluten-free. And Marzi was saying it was the blender cheese sauce. Yeah, it probably was. Okay. Someone's saying they love the pizza seasoning from Frontier. Have you had that, Ashley? I don't think I've had that yet.
No, I haven't, but that sounds really delicious.
I make a really good pepperoni spice blend and a sausage spice blend. Going back to the Outrageous cookbook, I take steel cut oats, cook them half, 3/4 of the way, mix them with the spice blend, and spread them out thinly on a parchment paper and put them in the oven, and then you crumble them for pizza crumbles or salad crumbles. Oh. But if you put them in soups, they return to their original form. So I don't recommend. I know. And Marilyn's saying she buys golden beets for her husband.
Oh, that's so funny.
Ooh, apple. This is like a $10 tip right there. I freeze cooked white sweet potatoes to use instead of bananas in my smoothies because I can't tolerate bananas.
Oh, wait, what is it that they used?
Cooked white sweet potatoes. I believe Chef AJ calls them Hannah yams.
Yeah.
And I think they're at Cava. Do you ever eat at Cava? There's one in Chapel Hill. It's basically a salad bowl place. It's pretty good. It is not. Oh yeah. It's whole food plant based. It's not whole food plant based, no oil, because they roast their vegetables and they use regular hummus. But if you can have some oil, it's still a way healthier option. But they were having separately these cooked white sweet potatoes that are very delicious.
Yeah, that is a pro tip because I've had people before saying they don't really care for bananas or they don't like the texture or flavor, especially even in smoothies. And so I love that. I'm going to use that. So thank you for sharing that.
That's why we're here. We're all learning from each other. And I got to say, that's one of the things I want to put in the creamy too. For sure, is like some frozen white sweet potato and see how that does. Um, and Sensible Crime says Kathy's lives remind me of dropping in by a friend's kitchen. She's warm and friendly, and I appreciate that. And oh, okay, good. You went away there for half a second. Are you back, Ashley? Can you hear me? Uh-oh. I can hear. I heard you move. Can you hear me? Okay, I'll keep reading questions while this is going on. Apple likes Anthony's products. I'm wondering if we're just, because our live is going long, but we're picking up so many more people now. Ashley, if you can hear me, if you need to go away, we can pull you back in too. So if you need to switch to your computer, don't even hesitate. And Joanne likes Anthony's products. And Lisa's saying, Nooch, fortified or not fortified?
So Kathy, I can't hear you and I don't know why.
Okay. Do you want to come out and come back in? Can you guys still hear me? Because it looks like I'm being heard on my sound levels. But that's okay. I'm going to just keep doing comments. Actually, I could make a comment. Ashley, want to go out and come back in. And then I will put that on there and she will see it. Okay, we'll get this all fixed up for sure. I just have to watch for her to be calling me on my little thing here, but we can still, okay, let's see. We'll talk about fortified and non-fortified. If I forget, remind me. I'm gonna look a little more on the, oh, here we go. Hey, Ashley, can you hear me now?
I can. Thank
Yay! You. Okay, awesome.
I saw a couple people were Anthony's fans, and someone said they liked the nutritional yeast, so that's good.
Yeah, and I definitely should try it. I got my charcoal that I made my Halloween gnocchi with from them.
Oh, that's so
If you would
brilliant.
like some charcoal, I have a lot of it, and it goes everywhere. Everywhere.
I have never used it.
You don't taste it at all, but you know I'm a Halloween freak, so I'm going to make all the things.
I do know.
Now, Lisa wanted to talk about Nooch fortified or not fortified, because I've talked to Chef AJ about it. Some of the doctors recommend not fortified and some recommend fortified.
Yep. I agree. I think it's kind of all over the place. And especially too, again, it's up to what you want and what you want to pay for. And sometimes the fortified versus the non-fortified, I don't know if any other Anthony's users noticed that, but I found that there was a difference.
Oh.
And so personally, I just liked the fortified better. But really you could go either way. I wouldn't necessarily rely on fortified for the vitamins. I think because we just don't know how bioavailable that they are, or even if they're like, if our body can utilize them when we actually take them in. So really I would say just kind of go based on taste and price and what you prefer.
I like that. And that was another $10 word, biofortified. I feel like now you've just like, you've raised the whole feeling of this interview with those fancy words. And Joanne was saying Nutritious is very expensive and she likes Frontier small flakes. And I think that's what I usually use. And Marzi likes Bob's Red Mill. And she's heard it's better to get one that's not fortified. And she's using Dillon's now, which is Well Your World. And so I'm excited. I can't wait to try some of the things. He's sending me some samples of a bunch of stuff. Cool. He heard me say I didn't have a favorite nutritional yeast. Maybe Nutritious did too. So
yes, apparently.
Win me over, people. Win me over. Okay. Now we're all... Okay. Oh, and Liz says she's still looking for a nooch that she likes. She's tried Nutrilicious and it wasn't for her. And I love the way that you put that, because what could be for me might not be for you. It's just
Yeah.
like when someone says, "What plant milk should I drink?" And I'm like, "Ta-dum, bomb."
Yes.
Listen,
Yep.
what kind of milk did you like? What are you going to use it for? And things like that.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, and that's great, Marilyn. Chef AJ likes Sorry Foods nutritional yeast that you can also get on Amazon. So I know we're keeping you on here a lot longer because people are still hanging in there and the numbers are going up. We've got like 31 people on right now, which is probably a better time than in the beginning if you want to talk a little bit. I know you prepared some things about meal prepping. Do you need a break? Do you need to take some water?
Oh, no, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And the thing is, I like staying on here too, because I feel like I keep learning from your community, Kathy, and obviously you as well. So I'm like, oh, I don't want to leave because I keep learning all this stuff.
My people are the best. They really are. And I mean, I know
I
it
can
sounds like I
tell.
just say that, but they're so sweet and friendly and helpful. And if I don't answer a question in the group, in my Facebook group, they'll come in and answer and help people. So it's a really warm community.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But I
Yeah,
want you to fix me in my meal prepping.
I think the main things I was going to talk about. So obviously before you even meal prep, it's helpful to have a meal plan. I was talking to someone, he was like, I'm going to meal prep this week. And I was like, oh, what's your plan? He was like, I don't have a plan. And I was like, oh, he's like, I didn't even think that there was a difference. And so we kind of talked about it. And so having a plan, like what I really recommend, especially when it comes to planning and setting yourself up for success for the week, is taking that extra time just to kind of plan what you're having for the week, especially if you find it really challenging to get to the grocery store Monday through Friday. It's really helpful to kind of have that plan, get your grocery shopping done before Monday starts, and have everything in your house ready to go before the week really starts and you hit the ground running. So setting aside some time to go through your list of cookbooks. Kathy, I pulled one of your cookbooks because I have it. I think the cheese sauce is in this one.
There's a sliceable cheese in that one, I think, too. I think that is that the. I can't remember.
It's it's like a little bit, yeah.
But there is a cheese sauce on the front. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you.
But it's helpful to go through, like to have like an arsenal of recipes wherever it is, whether you use cookbooks, which I personally like to use cookbooks, or whether you use Pinterest or Instagram to kind of pick out what recipes you want for the week, and then writing down the ingredients that you need, looking in your fridge and in your pantry and making sure you know what's already on hand so that you don't double up on ingredients, just to save money, because I'm all about being as efficient as possible when it comes to saving your money, especially when it comes to food. So that's a big recommendation there.
Yeah, I end up making a lot of clean out the fridge soups or stews.
Yes. Stoops, smooths, so I was going to say smoothie bowls. So stoops, stews, and smoothie bowls.
I like it. Maybe we'll start making frozen soup bowls. No, I'm just kidding. Oh. Although I could think of I made a bunch of fruit soups last year in the summer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then another thing I always recommend is having a very good knife on hand, just because if you are going to be chopping up a lot of vegetables or whatever it is for your week, it's helpful to have a knife that does the work for you. I don't know, Kathy, if you have a favorite knife, but I definitely have my go-to knife that I've had for over 10 years now that I take very good care of because it's gotten me through a lot of prep time.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I've used not so great knives and pretty good knives. I think I have a Misen now, but I have a shun that I only use when I'm cutting my sushi and things like that. Like that's my super fancy special knife that one day I'll pull it out and then I'll use it forever. But you can find some things that are less expensive. The only thing is just make sure that you either keep it sharp, take it to someone to get it sharpened, or just know that you're going to end up getting a new knife a little more frequently. So if you're in a grad school budget, it's okay to not have, $100 knife. But if you have the money, you can invest it once and then you're done.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And the only reason I got this knife so long ago was because someone graciously gifted it to me, because it was like the one thing that I asked for. So yeah, I really appreciated it.
I love that. I'm just putting up some comments. So if I'm not reading it out loud, it's just in general sharing.
Yeah.
But Apple does say meal prep is a form of self care for me. It's a way to
Oh,
ensure future me eats well. And I love that sentiment.
I do too. That's such a good way to look at it. And it's such a good reminder as well. Because we talked about at the beginning, like if your motivation is a little low to do some prepping, just remember how good you feel when it's done and how you know it's going to really just help make your week so much better or go so much more smoothly because of it. Yeah, I think that is such a great way to describe it.
Because I've been talking a lot probably the past few years about, I feel like there's like a COVID blanket that basically maybe your energy used to be here normal and now it's just here normal. And we're getting a little
Yep.
more used to it. But if you just have a very tiny amount of energy in a day or even in a week, kind of prepping salads for all your lunches might be a really great place to put that, or other tips that you're getting ready to give us.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. That can make the world of difference. And when you are kind of in a rut, just like, again, just exactly what Apple said, like just remembering like how good I feel after I do this and making the experience itself fun. I used to prep like in silence. It was kind of like militant. And now I might put a podcast on or play like some really fun music and just like make it really, really enjoyable for myself. That so if someone walked in, they'd be like, "What the heck is going on in here?" But again, it's like it is like Apple said, it's like a form of self care, and you're doing something for yourself and for your future self.
And I like that a lot. I talk about like starting your dishwasher at night. It's like a present to yourself. And the same thing, like I try to get up and empty the dishwasher first thing. Because
Yeah.
if I
Yep.
do that, then everything isn't going to pile up. As soon as everything piles up and I feel overwhelmed, then it's harder to cook. And so
Yep.
you may have a different trigger than that, but I think that that's pretty awesome. Um,
Yes.
so, what if you're a person who gets a little overwhelmed looking through cookbooks and things like,
Mm.
would you say, where would you start if I was trying to meal prep for next week? So let's say, because it's Friday, let's assume that we have this weekend taken care of, but this weekend I can prep for next week.
Yeah. That's such a good question. So, one thing I recommend is having a foundation that you enjoy. So, let's say like breakfasts are really, really easy for you. You can eat the same thing for every breakfast and you're okay with that. You really look forward to it. Then that's fantastic. What I would focus on is maybe a meal that gives you the most trouble. So if work's just busy or you're running around taking care of the kids and it's just getting lunch inside of you is a real struggle, then maybe prioritize that at the beginning of the week. That way you can just open your fridge, grab it and go and you're fine. Or even dinners if you come home from work and you're exhausted and you're like the last thing I want to do is stand at my stovetop and make dinners for myself, maybe focus on that. So if you're struggling to start with meal prepping, lean into your foundational meals that like breakfast. Let's say you don't mind eating the same thing every morning, and then focus on those meals that give you some trouble, and then take that extra time to plan those meals for yourself. And then if you get overwhelmed looking through like a cookbook, for example,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe just like think of something that you used to like as a kid or that you have had recently, and then type in Google very, very specifically, like whole food, plant based, sweet potato, black bean tacos. Don't just do vegan tacos, like be very, very specific in what you want. That way you can really just choose from like the first maybe couple of recipes that pop up and you're not looking through maybe an overwhelming amount of recipes in a cookbook or even online.
I like that a lot. And I do think it is important to put whole food plant based, especially if you're new to things and you're not used to tweaking things. Like
Yes.
Joanne, Marilyn, they're old hands. They can tweak anything just like I can. So I even go out and look at new trends and things too in like the sad eating world because I can
Yeah.
take that and then kind of jazz it up. I know a lot of people that I talked to last week meal prep by like making a grain, making some beans, making some things that aren't flavored, right? So we're not going to make
Yep.
Cajun red beans. We're going to make a pot of pinto beans that maybe I'll
Yeah.
take some of them and I'll make them Mexican and we'll have tacos, and maybe I'll make some Southern style, which is just, to me, it's like red beans. It's creamy beans. So I'm like queen of the creamy bean,
Nice. Yep.
right? How do you feel like, do you think that that is as equally sustainable as going ahead and having these other things prepped up, or if like from recipes, or do you think it's good to mix it up?
I think what is like most important as best as possible is like put the blinders on and do what is best for you, because there are 1,000 different ways to meal prep. And so if you want to, if you like having variety, but you're like, okay, my base can maybe be beans, like you used as an example, and I can like make those multiple different ways throughout the week, fantastic. Or if you want to make a couple or like one recipe for a few nights and put them in like a meal prep container, throw it in the fridge,
Nice
use
container.
that. Great. I think, yeah, really what can be like the biggest hurdle, especially when it comes to meal prepping, is like seeing what everyone else is doing. And it's so easy to like try and mimic that. But ultimately, what matters most is you and what is best for you and your week, because your week looks different than anyone else's week.
I love that, because I don't know about everybody else, but it's very easy for me to overthink things.
Oh,
And
yes.
and I think that I love the way you were saying, think about something that was your favorite too. So like I was thinking as we were talking, I haven't done this yet, but I probably should do some recipes which are just like basic slow cooker or instant pot freezer things where everything's prepped and you can just put it in just like you would a kit that you buy at Target or Trader Joe's that costs like $13.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of that's just stuff you saute and the other things.
Yep. Yep.
So that,
Absolutely.
what's your go-to? Like, let's say, or actually, okay, I've got two questions. What's your go-to favorite thing that you kind of always have on hand? And then the second question is, what do you do when your significant other has decided whatever you meal prepped is not interesting?
Oh, well, that's too bad. No, I'm just kidding.
Cheryl's in the room now. Cheryl, did you hear that? She's like, yeah,
Hi,
I heard
Cheryl.
it. Ashley says hi.
So, okay, Kathy, I feel like I'm like the stereotypical vegan plant-based person, because my go-to, like if I literally cannot think of anything for dinners, is to do a taco bowl, like a rice, bean, maybe a little bit of avocado, some tomatoes, some romaine, just like a really easy taco bowl. I always have rice in my pantry. I always have cans of beans in my pantry. Sometimes I'll have a jar of salsa on hand, but typically I'll like having like fresh tomatoes. So just doing that. That is my go-to. And then also one of my favorite childhood dishes growing up were enchiladas. So kind of doing a spin on that, like making them my own way, but very, very easily. I usually just like, I make it more like lasagna than actual enchiladas, just because it's easier for me to prep. I
I do
like
the
cutting
same thing.
corners.
I call it Enchilada Casserole, which
Perfect. Yes, exactly. Yep.
no, I definitely love that, and I think that that works really well. I don't know if you've ever done this. I tried to make some extra rice and freeze it, and I believe it was Marilyn who was freezing it in half cup portions even.
Oh,
So you
smart.
can do that with any cooked grain. So like, because when you're cooking some rice, it's usually pretty easy to cook twice as much. And
Oh,
then
it's so easy.
I had gone somewhere, and so I bought Cheryl the little quinoa brown rice packets.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I did that, as soon as I got home, I was like, well, that was so stupid. That costs about 5 times or 10 times more than what it would have for me to cook up some quinoa and brown rice together.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. But that's a really good idea, because rice, especially grains, it's so easy to make a large batch and just put them in the fridge or the freezer and save them for later. And I feel like frozen rice is really popular right now. I see it in the grocery store a lot.
And again, that's when I go, if you see it in the frozen aisle, you probably can do it yourself. Now, some things it can be a little different, but most in general, you can do that. And if you cook your beans from scratch instead of using cans, I have both all the time. is I'll make sure to cook the whole pound, and then I'll freeze the rest. And I usually freeze it in 1.5 cup increments because that's about what's in a can. So that way, if
Yep.
I just pull it out of the freezer, I don't have to go, ooh, what does this mean?
Yes. That's such a good idea.
Oh, and Joanne says she also preps a week worth of yogurt and kefir. She makes them at home, and he does a pint a day of each. Wow, that's impressive. She does a
That is
lot.
impressive.
Joanne does a lot of fermentation. She makes a lot of her own vegan cheeses. She makes her own tempeh,
Oh,
tofu.
that is so awesome. Homemade tempeh is another level. Kathy, I think that was what you were describing at the conference, was a person locally who was making homemade tempeh at the
The
time.
tempeh girl who's not here, she doesn't make tempeh here anymore, but her tempeh is the best tempeh I've ever had in my life. We have another local tempeh maker, and I like their tofu. But there was
Yes.
the tempeh girl was originally like, I don't know, whatever the scientific thing is that talks about stuff on a substrate, which is what tempeh is.
Oh,
So her
okay.
degrees literally were like, she understood all of that from a very scientific standpoint, and she was lovely.
Oh,
Yeah.
she was, yeah, very good.
And I, in my classes too, I have a tempeh class. So we did an easy tempeh. So if you guys want to try it, because you can get a vegan tempeh culture, it's easy peasy
Mm-hmm.
to do that on Amazon. And start with a can of cooked black beans, because the beans are perfectly cooked the way you need for the culture to attach. And that's a really good way to have a success. And with soybeans, you have to kind of dehull them and break them in half, though I think I have a new way to do that since last time. But whenever I make it and I show them the black bean, then I'm like, this is what we're doing that. And they're like, I'm never making soy tempeh. And sometimes you can buy already hulled and split soybeans, but I haven't seen them in a long time.
Yeah.
Um, okay. And Joanne says she's cheap, so she makes batches of grains. Oh, and she actually, okay, Jinx, that was exactly what she had just said. She said, Kathy made tempeh, ask her about her tempeh using a can of black beans.
Perfect.
Because I
So
think,
Kathy, does it,
okay,
well, does the tempeh end up being completely soy free with making it from black beans?
absolutely. Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Mm-hmm. And I made some with some scarlet runner beans. And it probably is time for another tempeh class. Didn't I make that tempeh 2 years ago, I think? It's all a blur. But I think we need to have another tempeh class. I tried before making one with grains, because you can make it with grains. And actually, there's a great book. Let me look over here real quick. If I can find it quickly, I'll show you guys. If not, I'll mention it another time. Here we go. And these people actually have fermentation classes. It's Kristen and Christopher Shockley. This is a great book.
Oh,
Miso,
cool.
tempeh, and natto. And
Wow.
natto is remember we were saying slimy? This one I would even say snotty.
Oh.
And I don't know, I've had it before. It's a very unusual thing for Americans to have. It's a little, and what's interesting is traditionally a raw egg is mixed with it in addition to that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so it's like, let's make sure most Americans are just really frightened of this food. But it's a
Yeah.
fermented food. It's really good for your stomach. But in here, like, and I don't know if you can see, so like, that's like split yellow and green peas. That's a black bean one, I think. But yeah, you can do so many things with it. I think this is a grain and or seed one. Mine failed miserably, but I've got a few other things up my sleeve this time, because I'd love to make a bean-free one for Chef AJ, because Chef AJ can't
Oh,
tolerate beans.
yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, and Joanne says it's a great book. It's an awesome book, and I don't know that they talk about they also have fermented vegetables and fiery ferments. Ferment Works is where you can find them online. They had some of their classes on sale for Black Friday, and I stocked up. I haven't watched them all yet, but one was like about fermenting garlic.
Ooh.
I know. I get really
God.
excited, and then all of a sudden I have a bunch of projects and I don't get to all of
Right.
it. But, you know, maybe I should do something like with these lives. So I'm going to be doing the plant-based chat once a week if I can get enough people to come on. I think I will. And
Oh
then
yeah.
once a week I'll do something. But maybe we should all do like a group project.
That sounds exciting.
Hmm. Um, and Apple says they'd like to start fermenting their own miso. And I got some of the koji. I did get some koji 2 years ago that I've not used. So I'm like, and someone that I am kind of, who's a mentor of mine with live streaming, Doc Rock, he makes his own miso. He's not plant based, but he's hilarious. He's hilarious, but he's
Wow.
like, and I'm like, he's in Hawaii, or I would have his miso right now because I'm like,
Oh my goodness.
you've got to send me some because then you can make it, you know, with chickpeas and things like that. I've been trying to work on kind of a salt-free umami sauce because I dare I not say soy sauce because I don't know it's not going to be a one-to-one. But that's one of the things the people that are SOS, that's a really hard thing to do, especially if they can't have any salt like coconut aminos. Do you have
Yeah.
any suggestions or things that you use for people who can't have salt?
That's such a good question. It's very challenging to navigate, kind of like what you're talking about. And so honestly, herbs and spices, like what you
Mm-hmm.
talked about earlier, that is usually my go-to recommendation, or very specific like blends to kind of mimic the salty flavor, the
I
savory
like,
flavor.
yeah, I like that a lot. It's just I've got to figure out something. Well, also I like it when Chef AJ asks me these things because she's always like, "You can't make this," and I'm like, "Watch me." It gets
Sounds
me
just like you.
excited because she's like, "You can't
Yep.
make a bean-free, nut-free ranch dressing that's because she does sophus free, so that means no nuts, seeds, avocados, flowers, in addition to the regular SOS." And I was like, "Yes, I can." And she's like, she's allergic to beans. So actually, I roasted an onion and made an onion cream, and that was the base of my ranch dressing. And I added
Ooh.
in more powdered garlic and onion to get the bite back that you lose because when you cook that onion, it doesn't taste like onion anymore. It gets kind of sweet
Yeah.
and luscious. And let's see, help you out with your vegan plan. Oh, and I believe Joanne is saying talking about these people because they're not it's not all vegan. I think even in here there may be some meat fermentation or something
Mm.
like I don't understand. I went vegetarian in 1983. So that was way beyond what the culture of meat that I grew up in. um, oh great, and Apple found miso tempeh and natto in the library, and that's a great place to go and check out some. And it's
Yes.
like intense, like it's all the stuff. I love it. They're and it's got chickpea miso. So if you're soy intolerant, you could make that. Maybe we should try. I don't know. I'm going to think about these things. Oh, and I like this. Lisa says lemon, lime juice, celery for salty components. Absolutely. And celery seed is a great one because it does have some of that. And even tomato powder, in addition to having that umami component, it does have a little bit of saltiness too.
Mm-hmm.
So Ashley, if you were going to kind of sum things up so I can let you get back to your life, I feel like I've kidnapped you.
I'm okay with it.
Okay, good. Because I'm like, oh yeah, we'll get on and chat. And it's like two
Yeah.
hours later.
I can't believe it's almost been 2 hours. That is wild.
Isn't it? Like once everybody gets on, it's just like, it's fun. It's like we're all having coffee and hanging out, which is
Yeah.
why I love doing this. So, is there anything you didn't get to talk about that you had planned to talk about, or anything that you want to leave us with as for helpful meal planning advice?
Ooh, I think the only thing would be is to again focus on you and what's best for you because there's so many different ways to do meal planning and meal prepping. So, and exactly what Apple said, you know, when your motivation is low or you're kind of struggling, just think about that future self, your future self, and how much planning or having food on hand that's grab and go is really, really beneficial for you, or makes your life so much easier, so much better. A little bit less stress, which is always nice, especially this time, of year. So I think that's kind of the thing that I would leave you with the most, is just to focus on you and what's best for you when it comes to meal planning and meal prepping.
I love that. I love that a lot. And Lisa says that this was a great way to start her Friday. And Joanne says, let's kidnap Ashley again. So maybe you can be on next month if you're willing. I won't put you on the spot now. I'm just going to plant the seed, because that would be lovely.
It would be lovely, especially if we have maybe some food involved. I think that sounds even better.
Yeah, you could make something for us. Or we could even, if you have do you have recipes on your site as well?
I used to do recipes many years ago, and I do not do them anymore.
That's okay. We could either, if you have a recipe you want to share, we could share it out and maybe we could all make it together. Sure. Or if you want, you're always welcome to make one of mine if there's something you want to make of mine, or we could just make stuff up. Let's make stuff up all together. Because when I do my classes, we usually do at least one recipe I develop during class so people can see how that process works.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the idea of experimenting.
I love that. Joanne says that you're great and fun. So, and Lisa's making an Instant Pot apple cake while she's here. Yum. Instant Pot cakes are so moist.
Yes.
And Kathy, I have an SOS cake on Plant-Based Instant Pot. It's a carrot cake.
Yes, I've made that, and I can testify that is really good.
Isn't it crazy the way it's moist when it shouldn't be? It's all because you're steaming it. And just so everyone, if you go to make it, you're going to be like, that's a really long time. I thought the Instant Pot cooked things faster, but it takes a long time to cook a cake, to steam a cake.
Yep. Yes. And it's springtime, so I feel like carrot cake this time of year is perfect.
I know. I have the icing I use is like dates and cashews. I have to see if there's something. So if you can't have nuts, you could just do a date caramel. Would still be delicious on it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Ashley, thank you so much for joining us and giving up part of your Friday to hang out and educate us about the things.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, awesome. Well, guys, you guys all have an amazing weekend. So you know what I'm going to ask you to do. If you have just a little bit of energy, I want you to do at least one nice thing for yourself today, even if that's have an extra glass of water with a slice of lemon, take a little walk, empty your dishwasher, just something small. And if you have a little bit of extra energy, why don't you do something kind or say something nice to somebody else? So that's all I'm asking for. And I will see you guys very soon. Thank you so very much for joining us.